Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Get Ahead Challenge. 5 days to change your money situation for the better and set yourself up for financial success. Today, we are focusing on how to adjust your spending so you can save more and get ahead. Now, first and foremost, if I asked you where your money goes each pay period, could you answer? And I'm not just talking your normal bills. I'm talking the discretionary spending. Those variable expenses that come up month over month that aren't necessarily tracked. If you can't tell me where your money goes, that's a problem. So, first, you're gonna want to start by reviewing and comparing your numbers. Now, in the previous lesson, we talked about a budget, and ultimately, your budget should outline where your money should go, but that is not the extent of your responsibility. Now, you got to take it a step further and track your spending so you can see where your money actually went. Now, if you don't currently track your spending, that's okay, we're gonna start today. So you're gonna wanna pull up your bank account activity and credit card statements and really look through the past month or two or even 3 to see where your money goes, especially in those discretionary spending areas. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this will be an eye-opening experience, but once you get clarity on where your money goes, you can now use that knowledge to make some changes. So, be ready to learn from what you're about to see and make those positive changes so you can get ahead. So, you're going to want to identify areas of spending weakness. And now, you want to start by categorizing your spending appropriately. So, in the previous lesson, we talked about your budget having 4 main components: income, expenses, debt, and savings. Now, specific to expenses, you can get really detailed. You have your living expenses and regular bills, but you also have your variable expenses. So, for example, food is an expense, but you can get more specific. Food can include groceries, going out to eat, and work lunches. So you'll want to categorize your expenses as specific as possible and then determine how much you're actually spending in each specific category. Once you do that, refer back to your budget to see if you are over or underspending in any particular area. This will allow you to see where you could be overspending and identify those as problem areas that you will need to consciously work towards fixing. Think through how you can avoid overspending in these areas in the future. So once you know that you have a problem spending in a specific area, you have to take it a step further and think about how you can prevent that problem from continuing to happen. Because if you don't make changes, it's going to continue to happen. It's going to continue to be an area of weakness for you. Now, one of the biggest splurge areas for my clients is, drum roll please, food, going out to eat, buying lunch at work, picking up a coffee. And I'm guilty of this too, ladies. Iced coffees are my thing. But you know what? I budget for them. So if I know I want an extra iced coffee this week, I'm going to skip picking up some fast food. I'm going to be smart about it. I know I like it. I know it's my vice. So I budget for it. Now, since food spending is a big problem area for most, I'm sharing a few ideas to help you cut back overspending on food. Number 1, designate a day to meal prep. If your meals are prepared ahead of time, it makes life easier for you during a busy work week. Me personally, I love Sundays for cooking meals for the week, or at least for the next few days. Pack your lunch the night before. Don't rely on yourself to get up 5 minutes earlier in the morning, pack a lunch, and then head to work. Pack your lunch the night before so you don't have to worry about it, especially if your alarm decides not to go off in time. Brew your own coffee at home. I do this. I invested in a nice coffee maker, and every night before I go to bed, I prep it with a timer so that when I wake up, my coffee is brewed and ready. Now, I'm not going to lie, it's not as tasty as Starbucks, but it definitely does the trick. Skip drinks at a restaurant. So if you are going out to eat, skip the alcohol. Alcohol can really increase your bill, so go for water and enjoy your meal out. Buy snacks at the grocery store. Me personally, I'm a snacker, so when I do my weekly grocery visit, I make sure to get snacks like string cheese or nuts or little snack packs so that during the week I can snack throughout the day and not be tempted to go buy a muffin with my iced coffee. When you're buying fresh produce, only buy for the week ahead. It's great that you want to eat fresh, and you absolutely should, but if you buy produce for the next 2 weeks, you run the risk of that food going bad and you not even being able to eat it. Now, the key to success is setting realistic limits for your discretionary spending and sticking to those limits. Okay, let me repeat this because it's so true. The key to success in getting ahead financially is setting realistic limits for your discretionary spending and sticking to those limits. Think about that. Now, you'll want to refer back to your budget so you can set those realistic limits. Your budget should outline your income and expenses, as you already know. But after your bills and expenses take place, what's left over? Did you already factor debt payments in there? What's left over after that? Have you saved anything yet? Make sure you're saving an amount that's not too large for you to miss until your next paycheck. Now, what about the variable necessities? Things like groceries and gas, which don't necessarily have a set amount each week, but that you do need to pay for. What's remaining after you've thought through all of that? After you've thought through your bills and living expenses, your debts, your savings, and your variable necessities, what do you have remaining? Remember, the key here is your income must exceed your bills and living expenses. If not, you are running a deficit every month, and that results to no savings and increased credit card debt. Now, once you know what you're working with, you can start setting some limits for your discretionary spending. You know by now you can leverage what income is left over after everything else is taken care of, so you can actually budget for the things you want to do. Be realistic. So realistic goes both ways. You don't want to overspend on the discretionary spending, but you also don't want to underspend. It's not realistic for you to say, I'm not going to buy anything for a month. It leads to failure. For one, you're setting yourself up to fail because it's not realistic. You have to enjoy life in moderation. Okay, the key is moderation. And be realistic with yourself, with your income, and with your other expenses. So refer to your spending activity to see where you are over or underspending and use that information to set your realistic limits. Also think about what discretionary spending can be cut back. Do you really need to buy coffee every single day? Why not try every other day? Small changes add up over time. Also, if you don't really have much left over for discretionary spending each month, can any other areas or expenses in your budget be reduced so that you can have some fun? Like I said, life is too short to not enjoy yourself in moderation. Now remember, you are the boss. You are in control. You can set the limits and stick to them. It's you. It's only you. Your money does not control you. You control your money. You control your spending. Now make sure you set yourself up for success. Make budgeted discretionary spending easier to follow by using cash for all discretionary purchases. What that means is, once the cash runs out, the discretionary spending stops until the next payday. Create a separate checking account just for discretionary spending. So we talked about this in the last lesson. At minimum, you want one checking account and one savings account. But if you tend to overspend, it could be a good idea for you to open a second checking account just for your fun spending. Once the account runs dry, no more spending until the next payday. Now, make sure if you do open a separate checking account for fun spending that your savings is not linked to it. I would not want you tapping into your savings so you can have a little bit more fun spending than you should. I will say this again. You control your spending. It's all about your mindset. It's all about your discipline. Nobody is forcing you to spend money. It's all you, girl. Now, there are plenty of ways to set yourself up for budgeting and saving success. I challenge you to get creative and find what works for you. Here are some quick ideas I'm going to share. Go on a spending fast, meaning try as long as you can not to spend any unnecessary money and just see how well you do. Unsubscribe from newsletters that trigger you to spend. Limited time only, 50% off. Retailers know exactly what to say to get customers to buy. So unsubscribe and remove the temptation. Next, practice identifying a need and a want. Once you get to the point where you can identify a need and a want, you can say no to the wants. And then try an accountability partner. If you can't control your spending, let someone in on what you're trying to do. Let someone know that you're trying to budget better, that you're trying to save more money, and that you need to control your spending. An accountability partner can really keep you on track. Now, it's not always easy to identify what budget and spending categories you can and can't live without. So some common need categories that likely should be in your budget include rent, utilities, insurance, groceries, transportation, so gas, maybe Uber if you don't have a car, medical expenses. And now some common want categories. These are things that people want, most likely, even though they don't necessarily need them to survive. They include beauty products, salon visits, dining out, bar tabs and drinks, subscriptions, and entertainment. Lastly, I want to share a few common categories that people think they need, but they really don't. In fact, some people can even convince themselves that they need some of these things, which causes them to overspend or miss out on saving more money. So, an excessive cell phone data plan. Wi-Fi is everywhere. Do you really need the top data plan? Cable, when it's bundled with phone and internet. I've had clients tell me, well, I gotta keep cable because it's what keeps my phone and internet bills so low. That's an excuse. You can find cheaper alternatives. Collision coverage for an older car. Now, if your car is worth 10 times the amount of the premium or less, you may want to skip collision coverage because the value of your car is going down every day and the premium stays the same. That's a problem. Too much fresh produce. Now, I mentioned this a little earlier. If you buy too much fresh produce, you may end up throwing it out, and that's essentially wasted money. And then certain memberships and subscription services. So Amazon Prime is great, $100 a year, but if you only buy 2 things, is it really worth it? Think about certain areas that you are convincing yourself you need, but you can potentially cut back. Now, I want to share with you that the ability to identify needs versus wants and then stick to needs-only spending is a skill that can be mastered by anyone. Anyone can train their brain to identify needs and wants and then be able to say no to the wants, which are not going to help them reach their goals. Now it's time for you to take some action. So we'll start with reviewing your past spending. Remember, it's going to be an eye-opening experience, and it may not be a quick experience either, but it's going to be so knowledgeable for you. It'll allow you to identify those areas where you overspend, so you can start thinking about different ways to avoid overspending. It will allow you to designate a realistic limit for your fun spending so you can enjoy life just in moderation. And then I challenge you to get rid of any temptation to spend. Unsubscribe from those newsletters, start practicing needs versus wants, and really take yourself out of situations that encourage you to spend money when you shouldn't. All right, ladies, well, that wraps up the Get Ahead Challenge Day 2. Stay tuned for the next day coming soon, and I will see you around.